Working with video, photos, and graphics sometimes requires manipulation of the image's scale, position, and aspect ratio in order to correct problems encountered on the shoot or create interesting visual effects. Using Final Cut Pro's 2D transform, crop, and distort tools, you can reframe your shots, create picture-in-picture effects, split screens, animate photos using the Ken Burns effect, and many others. In this lesson, we'll be working primarily with photos. However, everything you'll be learning in this lesson applies to video as well. The goal of this lesson is to have you animate a series of photos using Final Cut Pro's new 2D transform, cropping, and distort tools. Press Command 0 to exit to the project library. Create a new project by pressing Command N. Name the project Motion Effects. Make sure the default event is set for reenactors and leave the rest of the settings at their defaults and click OK. So we have an interesting backdrop for our photos to animate over. We're going to add one of Final Cut Pro's new generators to our project. Click the Generators Browser button on the toolbar to reveal a nice selection of static and animated background images. You can preview them by skimming over each thumbnail. Some of them, like blobs and the countdown, are animated, and some, like fabric and gradient, are static. These backgrounds are often called generators because they give you a quick way to generate content that you would otherwise need to create in another app, or perhaps purchase from a third party. In the Categories list, select Textures, then locate the Stone generator. Double-click to add this image to the primary storyline. Because we've not yet added any video content to the project, Final Cut Pro wants to know what format, resolution, and frame rate to use. Ultimately, we'll be editing this project into our main storyline, so let's choose 1080p HD for the format, 1920 by 1080 for the resolution, and 2398 for the frame rate, and click OK. The generator is added to the project with a default duration of 10 seconds. Let's change the duration to 16 seconds by selecting the clip, pressing Ctrl D, then entering 1600 and pressing Return. Zoom in on the clip so it fills out the timeline a bit more. With the generator selected in the timeline, open the inspector by pressing Command 4. The generator inspector is revealed with the name of the generator appearing at the top of the window. The look of the generator can be altered using the controls under Publish Parameters. Before we do that, allow me to explain why these controls are called Publish Parameters and not Generator Controls or something similar. If you right-click on any of the generator thumbnails, you'll see a pop-up that says Open a Copy in Motion. This should tell you that this content was initially created in Motion and can in fact be edited further in Motion if you have it installed. That said, opening these generators in Motion is rarely necessary because of two new features in Motion called rigging and publishing. When a generator, title, transition, or effect is created in Motion, its parameters can be published so that they appear and can be modified in Final Cut Pro. Furthermore, multiple parameters in a Motion project can be rigged to a single control, such as a checkbox, pop-up menu, or slider. Side note, these controls are called widgets. This control can then be published to Final Cut Pro, allowing the Final Cut Pro user to change many parameters of the Motion project with a single control. If you look at the published list of parameters for the Stone generator, the Type pop-up menu is a control that was rigged in Motion and then published, and the tint color and tint amount are parameters that were published directly. Let's change some of the parameters now. From the Type pop-up menu, choose Slate, or another material if you prefer. Let's also change the tint color to black, and the tint amount to 1. If you're a Motion user, rigging and publishing are incredibly powerful new features because you can now publish your Motion projects as templates for any Final Cut Pro user to access and control. If you want to learn more about Motion or how to rig a Motion project, check out our library of Motion tutorials at rippletraining.com. We're now ready to add some photos to our project. Photos can be added to the timeline directly from the event library, or they can be added from the media browser. Click the Photos button on the toolbar. Final Cut Pro gives you access to your Aperture and/or iPhoto libraries. There's a search field for quickly locating a photo, a project, or an event within these libraries. I'm going to type out production to bring up all the production photos from our documentary. Browse through the photos until you find one or more you would like to add to your project, then simply drag them out of the media browser and drop them into the timeline. I'll undo that last step. The other way to add photos is to import them into the event library, either from the File menu or dragging them directly from the desktop. In an earlier lesson, we imported a folder of photos called Production Stills, which became this keyword collection. One big advantage of importing your photos into the event library rather than dragging from the media browser is you can use Final Cut Pro's Edit Mode buttons to edit the photos precisely where you want them in your project. Press Ctrl P, then type out 400 and press Return to move the playhead to 4 seconds. Press I to set a selection range endpoint, then press Ctrl D again, enter 4 seconds, and press Return to create a 4-second range starting at the playhead. In the Production Stills keyword collection, select image 5135, then press Q to connect the photo to the primary storyline as a 3-point edit. Before we begin animating the image, we need to look at how Final Cut Pro deals with images of various sizes. In Final Cut Pro 10's new parlance, this is called spatial conforming. Make sure the photo is selected, then in the viewer, click the Fit pop-up and choose 25% to create some space around the image. In the timeline, move the playhead anywhere over the photo. At the bottom of the inspector, you'll find Spatial Conform. Click to reveal the Spatial Conform properties, of which there are 3 types: Fit, Fill, and None. In a nutshell, these 3 spatial conforming types determine how the image is scaled relative to the project's aspect ratio. The best way to see what's going on with the image is to enable the image transforms. Right-click anywhere on the image and choose Transform. We'll be dealing with transforming the image in the next section, but for now, I just want to call your attention to the blue dots, which represent the image scale. The photo we edited into the timeline is a 4:3 image with a resolution of 2592 by 1936. With the spatial conform set for fit, the image is horizontally scaled to fit within the project's 1920 by 1080 frame. Because of the photo's 4:3 aspect ratio, the image does not fill the frame and results in the background showing through the side areas, often called a pillar box. By choosing Fill, the 4:3 image will be scaled to fill the entire 16:9 frame and no pillar box will be created. But because of the math differential between a 16:9 and a 4:3 frame, the image will be cropped at the top and bottom. Lastly, there are occasions when you don't want any spatial conforming, you just want to work with the entire image. If so, choose None. The image will be centered in the frame and no scaling will be applied. This way, you're free to position and scale the image however you like in the frame to emphasize or de-emphasize certain subjects or elements. Before we move to the next section, set the spatial conform back to fit.